Is it possible to be sexually abused while married?
Yes, and I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I had already been divorced for a few years, maybe, I don't know, 5 years, when I was living with a roommate who started talking about her divorce, and she was seeing a therapist at this time. And when she started telling me her experience and she started talking about sexual abuse within her marriage, it hit me so hard because it was at that time that I realized that I had been sexually abused in my marriage.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that. And to talk about it, I guess, more openly for those who may be listening or questioning if that's happening to them, it is if you are ever feeling forced against your will. And he had me under his thumb where I couldn't ever say no and could never speak up. So that's when I thought, I need to go back to therapy
Yeah.
because this was never talked about, never processed. And that was, I ended up seeing my roommate's therapist that she was seeing, which was put in my path at the right exact moment.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Like a Diamond podcast. I am your host, Andrew Van Noy, along with my lovely and beautiful co-host,
Kristen Van Noy.
my wife. It is such a pleasure to be able to film with you. It's been a fun endeavor so far, would you say?
Yeah.
It has been.
And now I'm in the hot seat today.
You'll be in the hot seat. But before we get to that, we were at church today, actually, and we actually had a dear friend of ours pass away a couple days. And it has been very raw and emotional and brings many feelings to the surface. She was a young mom, 2 children going into their senior year of high school, and doesn't seem fair, right?
No.
And, part of the conversation that we were having on a date last night and kind of through the church day was, why does bad things happen to good people? And it just seems like sometimes there isn't a story, or there's no sense to be made of it, right? It could be tragic, it could be sudden, it could be expected, it could be all reasons why bad things happen to good people. But it does, and it happens, and it's not going to ever stop, right?
Right.
And I think sometimes bad things happen because of our own choices. We put ourselves into situations or circumstances where we bring on the adversity in our life because of what we choose. Other times it's because of the choices of others, and that's forced upon us. It has nothing to do with what we want. And other times it just happens. It's just the luck of life, I guess. But, nonetheless, we all face these hard things. And then the question is, how do we respond? And, Kristen, you and I have talked multiple times, like, are you allowed to be mad at God? Are you allowed to yell at him and be frustrated with him and tell him that you're mad?
I think it's taken a long time for me to get to the point where I say, yeah, you should be. I think it's healthy.
Well, and if you think about it, like with any teenage child, right, or younger child, we have a teenage child. It is a very natural, healthy part of relationships that are growing and learning as a child to parent, that they have outbursts or they yell or they're mad, right? And
Right. And I say that you should in the fact that I think it's part of the
right,
process in starting to ask questions of ask why. Why would you do this to me or us? And that's just part of
right.
the process.
So I think it's okay to be mad at God, and I think because if you're comfortable in your relationship with Him, and you believe he's there, and you are a child and he is our parent, then it seems to be just a normal, I guess, progression of relationship to be able to be mad at him. Right. We're imperfect,
Absolutely.
but I'm only bringing that up because we're feeling some of these feelings, and perhaps what we talk about today in our subject with your story, there is some anger with God, or trying to sort those feelings out. But so today I'm excited because we already had an episode where I was able to tell a lot about my backstory with cancer and kind of how that impacted my life. And today, like you said, you're in the hot seat.
I'm in the hot seat and sharing part of my story and how I guess it has kind of shaped part of who I am today.
Yep. And we'll go into those details. So
Yeah.
let's start, Kristen, you were married before we got married. We got married, I was 28 years old. You were 27, 26.
Year older.
Then I must have been 27.
You were 27.
I was 27. I forgot these things. I forget a lot of things in our marriage. Seems to be probably a subject for another podcast episode, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll do that one still. So let's talk about, how old were you when you got married the first time?
I was 20 and then I was divorced by 21. So it was only a year and a half marriage, which I am very grateful that that's all it was.
So married at 20, divorced by 21. So let's kind of go back in time, rewind the film,
Yeah.
and just so you know, or for our audience, I don't necessarily love talking about this subject because it's a little weird for me. But I want to show everyone, we need to have these conversations, and I know all of this stuff about you, but I don't always talk about it, right? Because it's I don't know, it can be weird.
I know it almost feels like it's so far behind me now that it feels like this chapter, like it's been closed for a while.
Yeah.
So,
Which is good. And for me, it seems like a chapter that never happened. Because other than the stories, I was never a part of your life, 7 years later, right? So let's talk about, how did you meet your first husband?
so I started working at Chakarama restaurant in high school, and it was the perfect little high school gig. And that's where we met. We were both serving tables, and it wasn't until I had moved away from home and moved to college that our relationship ended up getting more serious and started dating, because we just were friends for probably a year before we actually started dating, and dated for a year, engaged for, oh gosh, see, I don't know, 3 to 6 months, and then married.
Mm-hmm. Being married for so short a time, it seems like maybe there was red flags before you got married. Some people always ask that question, can you know before you're married that there's concerns that maybe should stop you from getting married or keep you? But in this scenario, did you see any red flags?
Yeah, I for sure saw red flags before I got married. Um, and so I know there's probably a lot of people thinking, then why would you have married him if you saw those red flags? We can get into that a little bit later, but I saw a few red flags, but I always told myself it's not that bad, or this is the worst it will get, or no, this isn't who he really is. There was always an excuse or a reason. And so those red flags were very quickly pushed aside and just kept moving forward in our relationship. And even when family members would bring up the red flags, I just would always have an excuse. And so those red flags didn't really hold any weight at the time.
Is that a female quality that you as women typically see the best in people, or you're able to look past stuff it seems like, I wouldn't say it's a fault. I think it's a blessing. It's a skill that you have the ability to see past things that might otherwise be. I mean, you saw them, but I mean, I'm not trying to lump you in as a whole, but it seems like that can happen often. Where like, oh, there's some issues, but like, I can see past that.
Yeah, I'll take that as a compliment that yes, we can see past that, but at the same time, I think in this particular scenario, it wasn't me seeing past it. It was me marrying or dating someone that I thought that's what I deserved. That I didn't
Mm.
deserve anything better, or if I didn't marry him, then I wouldn't be able to marry anyone. That was as good as it was going to get.
Sorry to hear that. I know no one wants to feel that way. Was there a point with the red flags that you're like, maybe I shouldn't marry him, or was it always like, I'm just gonna marry him?
It was probably a week or 2 before we got married that I had thought, "This might be a really bad idea."
Mm,
But at that point, I felt like I was so deep into the planning, the wedding, the paid for things that, like, I was already too far in it, I couldn't back out now.
mhm.
And it would have been a lot better had I just backed out and sent cancellation announcements or whatever you do
Yeah,
in that scenario, I don't know, but
but that scenario seems so terrifying to, like, you planned it, you told people about it, you purchased stuff, you've rented things.
no, it is terrifying, it's scary, and that's why I didn't ultimately I wasn't able to do that.
Mhm.
I was scared.
Did anyone in your family know you had those feelings before you were
No,
married? No.
I didn't voice them to anyone, no friends, nobody. I kept
No.
all of that to myself.
So, you get married, you look past that, I'm sure there was a period of time that everything was fine and, like, "Hey, things are good,"
Oh, let
or
me
is that
share
not the.
this. No, I do remember on our honeymoon, I don't know if it was just the first night, I think it was the first night, I woke up the next morning and I had thought, "What the crap did I just do?"
Oh, no. That's not what you wanna think on your.
And that is the last thing you should be thinking when you are on your honeymoon because that's as good as it's going to get.
Mm,
So I just kind of put on a face, hoping that when we got home, things would maybe get a little bit better. And I say better in the fact that I could start seeing there was a little bit of control coming out. Um, it wasn't until I don't know how many months into the relationship, 6 months or so, where he would only allow us to have one car. Let's sell both of the cars and only get one nicer car. And at the time, it was like, great, I'll have one nicer car. But now I can look back and say, no, that was 100% a form of control. That was him saying, nope, you need to stay home. You need this. And um, there's one piece to this story that is very important that I share, though, before we get into the actual abuse of the marriage and the relationship is when we started dating. Actually, right before we started dating, he had told me, he's like, I just found out I'm a dad. And my little girl, I'm not going to use names. I have a little girl. She was just born, and mom is in jail. And so he went and picked her up, and he became a single dad. And I thought that was the most heroic thing that he kind of put his life on hold and that he went and picked up his daughter. And he's like, I'm going to take care of her and I'm going to provide for her. Because I do think a lot of men would not have done that. They would have just let her parents, grandma and grandpa, take on the baby. And I thought that was very noble of him to kind of put everything else on hold and make her a priority. So that was attractive to me.
Yeah, so instead of, hey, that should be a concern perhaps, like, he's had a child, the previous girlfriend's in jail, does that say anything about his
Red
judgment?
flag.
Right, you saw the thing you wanted to see, which was
I saw the good.
the good. Like, hey, he's taking care of his daughter, he's owning up to it, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So then when he had her, we actually started spending more and more time together. And that's when I started seeing like, oh, he is a really good guy. And it was all the things, all the dad traits, if you will. Um, so yeah, we started dating and spending more and more time together. And he had her full time since mom was in jail. And so I became very attached to his baby girl very, very quickly.
Mhm.
And so that was another reason when we got engaged that, another question, am I ready to be a full-time stay-at-home mom? That would have been my role at the age of 20. And that part didn't actually scare me because I had felt ready to be a mom for a while, that I had known I've always wanted kids. Um, but again, that should have been a red flag that, okay, well, I'm going to become a mom, but I can't adopt her. Her mom's in jail. Learning more about grandparents, that was not good. They had a really rough life as well. It was kind of all of these bad things adding up. Although his baby girl was a huge blessing for me
Yeah.
in my life. And she's, I believe, the reason I wanted to stay
Mhm.
was to be there for her and to protect her.
Yeah, I mean, that complicates things where, if it's just a relationship with one person and it's not going well, like, leaving is one thing, but when there's children involved, even though it wasn't your child, she felt like your child.
Yeah, I spent all this time with her.
Mhm.
She was mine full time.
You're married for a year. It seems like, from your stories, things got progressively worse, correct?
Yeah, so to kind of jump back in the timeline of things, somewhere around 9 to 12 months, like things just started getting bad. And it was more the fear of like when he would come home from work, I was in such a state of fear of how he would talk to me and treat me. And it was definitely control, manipulation, and emotional abuse. And so those can seem a lot more trivial than the physical or sexual abuse that can happen. That I'm like, well, if that's it, then I just need to stay and I need to stick it out and make it work. And I remember somewhere between the 9 to 12 months, I had said, I think it was about a year. I had said, I just wish he would hit me.
Hmm.
Because if he hit me, then that would mean it, that I could leave, that it got bad enough to the point that I could leave. Which is so sad because it's negating everything else that had already happened that was bad enough that I should have left, and I didn't. Um, so one night it was a parenting thing we disagreed on, and as I disagreed with him, I could tell that he got more and more and more angry, and I was a little concerned for his daughter at the time. And so I wasn't backing down because I was concerned for her. And I remember him coming up to me and finally hitting me.
Hmm.
And in my mind, I think it was like, it's about time. Like he would get so angry so fast. He had thrown things across the room. And as he was this angry and had already hit me. He started going up the stairs, and I had the thought, I shouldn't have followed him, but in the heat of the moment, I did. I followed him up the stairs, and he tried to kick and push me down the stairs, and ended up upstairs in our room. Um, that's why I followed him, because his daughter was in his arms,
Mm.
and so fortunately, he was just going into her room and laying her down in her bed, and went to our room, and he ended up um, ripping my shirt off and throwing me and shoving me down on the bed. And I thought, I have to get out of here. This is not okay. This is scary. And I told him, I said, I'm leaving. Um, And I went into his daughter's room, and I thought I was going to take her with me. And he goes, if you take her, I will be calling the cops and telling them that you kidnapped my daughter. And I knew he would have done that.
Mhm.
And so I had to leave her behind. And I got in the car, and kind of weird that in that moment, might think that it would be a family member a close family member that I would call. I actually called his sister, um, because I knew that she would believe me. She had made a comment earlier on in our marriage that if he ever does anything, that you be sure to call me.
Mm.
And at the time, I'm like, what is that
Now,
mean? Um, so I called her, and I had told her what had happened. And she asked, well, where are you at right now? I said, I'm in the car. I'm just driving around in our neighborhood, and I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. And she said, why don't you go knock on your bishop's door, our church leader. I was like, it's almost midnight. She goes, it doesn't matter. If you don't know where to go right now, then that's what you need to do. So I went and knocked on his door, almost midnight. When you've got teenagers, you're usually up that late anyway. So he was awake, and he said, let's go down to the church and talk. And of course, when I'm knocking on his door, I'm a mess. I'm sobbing. And we go to his office and start talking and start telling him what had happened. And he encouraged me at the time to go home. And because of,
not to your home, your married home.
yeah, correct, to my childhood, to
Yeah.
my mom and dad,
Yeah.
my parents' home. So I should go to my parents' home. And I said, no way. I don't want to do that. I can go to my friend's house. And I knew I didn't want to go to my mom and dad's because they had said there was red flags. You shouldn't marry him. And I ended up marrying him anyway. And so that felt very scary to go knock on their door and to tell them that, guess what? You're right. I made the wrong decision. And to kind of feel like it was rubbed in my face. He encouraged me, I still think that's where you should go. I don't think you should go to your friends. I really think you should go to your parents. And he's probably saying that as a parent himself, that if this was happening to my daughter, this is what I would want her to do. So I did. I called my dad. He is a night owl, so I knew he would be up, and said, I need you to go wake mom. Had just left him, and I'm coming home right now. And so I got there, and they were both awake, and we stayed up till probably 4 a.m. talking about everything. But when I say he, I'm not using names. So he came to my parents' home
That night.
that night. Yeah, probably 20 or so minutes after I had gotten there. And he My dad opens the door and lets him in and start involving him in part of this conversation, and I wasn't really liking where the conversation was going. I kind of felt trapped in some of the questions. And so eventually, I don't know how long he was there for, 10, 20 minutes. And my dad eventually kicked him out and slept there at my parents' house that night. We stayed up till 4 in the morning talking and fell asleep. And when I got up in the morning, oh, this is a huge part that um, might be hard for some to hear and for some to listen to these words. But when part of the LDS religion, we get married in the temple and we make covenants. And because we had been married in the temple, my dad strongly encouraged me to go back. And my mom did not want me to. She wanted me to just leave him right then. And he said, I think you should go back. I think you should try, whether it's therapy or, do something, because you made covenants together. So the next morning, I woke up and I went back. And as soon as I got there, I already felt sick to my stomach. I didn't want to see him. I didn't want to be in the same house as him. And I don't know, within a few days, I had told him, if this is going to work, then we need to go see a therapist. And he was like, yeah, I'm on board. I'm on board.
So was he like nothing even happened that night? Like,
Yeah. It really was as if there was zero conversation about it. It was all completely brushed under the rug. And that is what an abuser does. So they abuse you, and then when they come and apologize, and then they put on the charming, happy them for a period of time, and then they start getting back into that cycle all over again. And yeah, everything was brushed under the rug. So he was very cordial in saying, yes, let's go to therapy, and worked with our bishop and went and saw a therapist who I think I had a feeling was really brand new and could not see through his just facade and the bull crap that he was putting on. One thing that this therapist asked us to do, he goes, okay, before I see you the next time, so we'd go every 2 weeks. And he goes, before you come back the next 2 weeks, I want you to try to make an extra effort to go out of your way and to do nice things for each other. And I want you to make record of the things that you're doing for them. And so I did. I remember trying, I'm going to really try and make this work. And so I went out of my way and trying to offer to help and make lunch and do extra things. And every single day I remember waiting, is he going to do something for me today? Not once. Which was pretty shocking to then go back to the therapist and tell him that. And there was no questioning him, why didn't you do anything? I feel like therapy is so much further along now than it used to be. And 3 months of couples therapy every other week, and we were good to go. And it was fine for a minute, and then it would just slowly decline and go back downhill, and how he treated me and talked to me, and then it was the next huge blow up at a year and 3 months. He got super mad in the car, and everything was always my fault. So I wanted to go to the gym, and he started screaming and yelling at me in the car, but I kept telling him, I don't want to go to the gym. I'm not going to go work out right now. Then as soon as we pull in the parking lot, it was, "What, you're not gonna go work out?" and screaming and yelling at me because it was my fault that we had driven to the gym. And it just escalated. Drove back home. Neither one of us got out of the car. And I remember getting out of the car, both of us. He went and put his daughter in a wagon and started going for a walk. And I walked into the house, immediately started packing my bags. And it was a blessing at the time that we were trying to sell my brother's car for him. And fortunately, it hadn't sold. And so I had that car, but I had no gas and no money. So I called my mom and I said, "Something just happened. I'm leaving. I'm packing a bag. I need you to come meet me at a gas station." She goes, "We're actually already in Draper. We're visiting your cousin. I'll leave right now." And she met me at the gas station, put some gas in the car, and left. And I remember that night sitting, or that day when I had gotten to my parents' house, he again showed up at my parents' house and wanting to come in the house. This time my dad stopped him from coming in, and all I heard was, "I didn't hit her."
Hmm.
I'm like, "Really? That's your reason?" All this other stuff that had happened wasn't bad,
Yeah.
but because you didn't hit me, then things are still okay. Obviously not the case. He sent him away, and I just remember saying, "I'm done. I'm not going back. I have tried." And within 2 weeks, we had signed divorce papers. We had no assets. We had a little bit of debt. And like, he can keep all the stuff in the house. Like, I just want to be done. So,
So that happened pretty quick. You made a decision to get divorced, and 2 weeks later,
yeah.
I mean, how did your parents help you pay for that? I mean, just all the
Yeah, they did actually. I know there's not a lot of people in that scenario where they can just go pay an attorney to get papers drawn up. And my parents had somebody within their neighborhood they contacted. I don't remember if he specialized in divorce, but it was such a quick thing where we didn't have kids. I'll talk about her again, but it was a much easier process for the length of time that we had been married, and no assets and things to split up, no home. So they helped with that. And just within, gosh, so I had left my parents. A week later, I moved all my stuff out. A week later, we had signed divorce papers. And within a few days, I actually ended up moving up to Seattle, Washington to live with my aunt and uncle. They were such a blessing that they said, "We just have a feeling you need to move away and get away from your ex." And I think it's a really good thing that I did for a couple of reasons. I met the most incredible therapist while I was up there. That was my first time going to therapy, and it was very eye-opening and life-changing. Um, and B, I think he would have stalked me.
hmm.
I think he would have made my life a living hell. And he tried to do that in a different state, um, by saying, "If you don't come back, I'm gonna kill myself." And still using manipulation from afar. And then, of course, I'm thinking, "Oh, great, then what about his daughter? What's gonna happen to her?" And, of course, that was a very hard decision to make because I wasn't just leaving him, I had to leave his daughter. And that was the first time that I lost a child. And of course, I still think about her. She's much, much older now. Um,
So I know I thank you for sharing all of this so far. I know it's not always easy to go back into these memories that you've kind of closed and talk about them. There might be some, you know, thinking, oh, maybe it wasn't that bad. Like, like he hit you one time and he had some, and I'm not downplaying, but I don't want people to think like there doesn't have to be like, this is how bad it has to be before you get divorced. Like,
Absolutely not.
right,
There can be a state of not feeling emotionally
right.
safe, and therefore that totally warrants leaving and getting a divorce.
Yeah,
It doesn't have to be actual physical abuse.
right. And I think that's, a very touchy subject to talk about that I don't think a lot of people talk about. And, that comes to be like sexual abuse within a marriage. You know, there's probably some people that think, well, the woman's body is mine because I'm married to her and she gets to satisfy me whenever I want it, right? Which is not what I believe, obviously. But
Yep.
is it possible to be sexually abused while married?
Yes, and I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I had already been divorced for a few years, maybe, I don't know, 5 years, when I was living with a roommate who started talking about her divorce, and she was seeing a therapist at this time. And when she started telling me her experience and she started talking about sexual abuse within her marriage, it hit me so hard because it was at that time that I realized that I had been sexually abused in my marriage.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that. And to talk about it, I guess, more openly for those who may be listening or questioning if that's happening to them, it is if you are ever feeling forced against your will. And he had me under his thumb where I couldn't ever say no and couldn't ever speak up. So that's when I thought, I need to go back to therapy
Yeah.
because this was never talked about, never processed. And I ended up seeing my roommate's therapist that she was seeing, which was put in my path at the right exact moment.
Yeah. I'm the lion in me comes out when I hear that, as your husband now and your protector and to hear that makes me want to like tear people apart. So I know it's hard to talk about, but I feel like we got to keep going a little further. So I think there's a difference with like, in a marriage, there's always cycles, there's always health and hormones and times of month and exhaustion and work and kids, and there's always time that someone might not feel like, oh, I want to be intimate, right?
Yeah.
And it might be because of exhaustion, and there might be times like I don't really want to do it. Um, because of a whole list of factors,
Yeah.
right? And that may or may not be considered sexual abuse, right? Because we all feel that. I know there's times you feel that in our marriage. Um, and, sometimes physiologically, the husband or the wife has a higher sex drive than the other. And the other one
For
doesn't
sure.
feel in the mood or want to, or they're too tired. Like I said,
Yeah.
that's not necessarily sexual abuse just because one partner wants it and the other one doesn't.
Yeah.
Um, it could start leaning on that if it happens repeatedly without sensitivity, without conversation. So I'm not the expert, and I'm not trying to pretend that, and I'm not trying to label or to frame it in a way where I'm saying it is or isn't. I'm just trying to have a conversation so that if you think maybe you're in a situation in a relationship where, like you said, like this might be happening, maybe it's worth taking a look at.
And I think it was also the fact that I was being emotionally and verbally abused every day.
Yeah.
And so being completely suppressed in every aspect of our life, that I was then also suppressed and didn't have a voice in the sexual aspect of
Yeah.
my life. And when you're living in a complete state of fear, why would I ever want to be physically
Yeah.
close to him?
Right.
And that's where in my story, um, I'm not going into other details, but there are other details of being forced to do things.
Yeah.
And that's where the real trauma, if you will, happened
Yeah.
in the sexual abuse.
I think it's just very important that we're having this conversation. Not that I want to open old wounds for you, but again, I know there are people that will be listening that will have the thoughts and the feelings or impressions like, man, and if you're in a similar situation where you don't feel like you have a voice, if you're not allowed or can't go to a therapist, can't afford it, or you're afraid of what might happen with your partner, you need to find a friend or someone to talk to, because to hold all that in and not have someone to express is just increasing and intensifying the pain that I think you experience, right?
Yeah. And I know not everybody has family or friends that they can lean on, or they might not even have the courage to get up and leave and make that step. And I know it's a lot harder when, if we would have had kids together, that
Yeah.
me leaving,
Right.
it's a completely different type of mess.
Yeah.
I know I was fortunate where I had the courage early on to leave him, and I was able to start over. Um, and yeah, that meant I was starting over with where I lived and my friends, and I was going back to school and going back to work, and I was no longer just stay-at-home mom. There was, yeah, every aspect of my
Yeah.
life I had to start over, and I had some support, and not everybody has that. And I know there's a lot more resources, um, that you can find, whether it's a safe house, that can help women. I know there are resources out there.
Yeah. And you mentioned obviously you were lucky you didn't have children together. Having children absolutely complicates that. It makes the decision-making process more sensitive and
Yeah.
the repercussions higher. But one thing, and again, I'm not a marriage family therapist expert or psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever. My thought is, I know I've heard people say, well, I'm just gonna stay with it until our kids get old enough or graduate. And I don't know if that ever does any good. And again, this is anecdotal. This is my experience or perspective. I don't know what good that does to wait and suffer through the pain for some date where now, okay, I'll get divorced. Because to me, from my experience, the kids see it all. They feel it, they sense it, they see it, they hear it. You're not
Absolutely.
tricking anyone. And most often, you're not actually doing any favors or helping them in a situation that's broken. If anything, like delaying the inevitable can sometimes be worse. It's like, what did we miss out on? What could have been different or better in our family had a decision that you made earlier? I,
Yeah. I think that is a very hard and tricky
you know,
conversation to have. Um, who's the person that you can talk through all the pros and the cons of why you want to stay or leave, or what does that look like if I leave? Then sometimes I think it is harder for the female to leave because it's not just females that are the ones being abused.
Yeah.
There are males that are also in abusive relationships. And for those that have been used to being a stay-at-home mom and raising the kids, so what does that now mean? I've got to go out and work at the same time as trying to raise my kids, and I know that's a lot. That's a big hill to climb, but I think there's also some peace that you can find throughout, um, because you're not stuck in that chaos and that abuse 24/7.
Yeah. I think, um, this is kind of where our paths collide is as you were really deep into your therapy, we we met and started dating. And so that was something. I was 27 years old, had never been married. That was something that was new to me because while I had dated other girls before, I had never dated someone that was married, and I had never dated someone that had emotional trauma, physical trauma. And so for me, it was literally you were going through your therapy the same time. And so I didn't quite know how to experience our relationship because so much of your past was coming out. And so it was tricky, and maybe I wanna I guess maybe have you talk about that,
Yeah, I wanna jump into that side of the
Yeah.
story because I think it's important to share just the night and day difference. But also, so yeah, I was seeing that therapist that my roommate had recommended when we had met. And the way that we had met, kind of a funny story. I don't know if you want to tell it or
Yeah,
if we.
sure, we could tell it just for fun. I mean, I was working out at 24 Hour Fitness in Provo, Utah, and, I enjoyed my Saturday morning workouts, usually because there was more girls, pretty girls that would come in on Saturday mornings. And so I remember, up on the 2nd floor working out close to the window, and I'd kinda just casually glance out the window to see, if girls were coming, you know? Um, and I kept seeing a lot of pretty girls coming into the gym, but I just didn't see them anywhere. I was looking around. And again, guys, like picking up the girls at the gym is not like the best place to do it, right? They're,
No, I hated it.
I know you hated it, but I like looking at pretty girls. And so I was like, where are they? So I ran downstairs, or I went downstairs, just kind of like looking around. I was like, oh, there's like 50 girls in a class. I was like, this is where they all are. And they're all, they're pretty. And so I peeked my head in, like, there's 2 guys in there, probably, I don't know, 30 girls. Maybe I'm exaggerating the number.
No, that's probably accurate.
But the 2 guys probably had like spandex on, like if that said anything. And so I was like, all right, whatever. I'm just going to go in. And I was in pretty good shape. And so I was looking around at like what everyone else had it in the form of weights. It was a body pump class, right? And I saw the 2 guys. I was like, oh, these guys are wusses. Watch, so I grab a bunch more weight, not ever having been to a body pump class. And then the teacher started, and I was like, okay, this is gonna be easy. But with body pump, it's like 2-3 minutes straight.
It's super high reps.
Yeah, super high reps. And here I am, like, completely regretting. I think we were doing like bicep curls, and I had like 25s on each side, which isn't a lot, but doing 25s for like 3-4 minutes straight, I was dying, and I was thinking, oh crap, I'm kind of towards the front. Like, I can't just stop and take off all these weights. I'll be look like as a wuss. But meanwhile, as I'm dying, I look up and the teacher has about the same weight I have. And she's just like pumping and talking and moving back and forth and all bubbly and happy. And I'm like, I have the same amount of weight as she has. What the heck? I'm a pansy. And so the story is Kristen was that instructor. And I kind of found a little bit of pleasure in like experiencing pain at your behalf, maybe. But so I kept watching, and the whole class, I was struggling because while I lifted, I didn't lift like that. And so I had to kind of humble myself and reduce the weight over time. But after the class, I went up and just thanked you, and we talked for a little bit, and I was trying to flirt with you. Don't know, it probably didn't work very well.
I just was so anti don't pick pick up on me.
Yeah.
After a class, I'm here, I'm in my gym time, leave me alone.
She was probably used to it. But so then I didn't really think anything of it. I did. I wanted to go to another class. So I looked on like the board outside the class and it showed you were teaching a cycling class, a spin class.
Yep.
So a couple days later, I go to the spin class and same thing. Like I was doing some road biking, but never had been to a spin class and it just destroyed me. Right.
Yep.
And after the class, we went up and talked a little bit again.
Yeah,
I
I
think
do
Ruth, remember that?
actually talking to you at the end of that class, and it was just, I don't know, the brief conversation.
Yeah.
But then we think, what, maybe a
Year.
year or
It was a
so
year.
went by.
I think it was a year between that. Yeah.
Andrew, you had moved to Montana.
Yeah, I had lived in Montana. Then I think I lived in Park City, Utah, and yeah, then I was
But
back.
that like year hiatus. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was still at the gym. So after that year, the one and only time I was teaching another spin class, the one and only time the stereo had ever gone out, I had to run down the stairs to the front office and go grab a little portable stereo to connect my phone up so I could still teach. And right as I was going up the stairs, Andrew was coming down the stairs and we both stopped, looked at each other and said, "Do I know you?"
Yeah, we didn't remember how we knew the context of how we knew each other.
And then all of a sudden, it was like, "Wait, you've been to my class before."
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, "Yeah, are you still teaching?" And I said, "I'm actually teaching a class right now. I'm so sorry. I've got to go. Good to see you." And that was it. Until you went back to the board and you saw Kristen B.
Yep.
and stalked me on Facebook. And
She says I stalked. I used what Facebook was intended for, which was looking at your life profile and history and all the photos that you put public, right? That's not stalking. That's the whole purpose of Facebook. But she says I Facebook stalked.
He stalked me and found a mutual friend that I was going to school with at the time. And you were in the same ward together.
With church, yeah.
And so you contacted her and said, "Hey, what do you know about Kristen? Can you like set me up?"
Yep.
And she ended up reaching out and saying, "Hey, you met my friend Andrew at the gym. Would you be open to going out with them?" And I always said yes to a first date. That was just, I don't know, my rule of life.
So this is a shout out to Kara Grenny Davies, right?
Yeah.
Davies is my name now, or her. Kara, you hooked us up and now we're together because of you. So I will give you that credit. Thank you.
So when we started dating, I didn't know that he knew I had already been married and divorced. I usually waited for a few dates to see if it was going to go anywhere, to see if I wanted to divulge that information. So it was probably, well, I'll say when I came home from that date, I called my mom and I said that was the easiest first date I have ever been on. And it was our communication. Like we were able to just talk, but it wasn't surface level. It just felt so easy and comfortable.
Yeah.
And yeah, at the time I was seeing that therapist. And so a lot of traumatic experiences were resurfacing and coming back up. And I don't know, once we started dating, it was kind of
it was a little wild.
A little bit of a roller coaster.
I remember
because of me.
I remember calling my mom and being like, this is not worth it. Like I've never been part of a relationship where it was this emotionally like chaotic. And that part of that was because as we were trying to date and learn each other, all these emotions were coming out and I didn't know where to put it. I didn't know.
Or that we would become more physically closer. That's when I would have a freak out moment and say, "Oh, well, I can't do this. We're moving too fast." But then it was like, but I want to date you. So it was no coincidence that meeting you and seeing this therapist had to happen at the same time. I don't know if I would have been able to actually get married had that not happened at the same time.
Yeah, but on my side, just for quick experience, like I remember calling my mom and be like, I don't know if this is worth it. Like it's way too much effort, way too much energy. It's too up and down. I don't know where this is going.
It's true.
But I had had a history of kind of running from hard things. And so I don't remember what it was or when it was, but I had made a commitment to myself. And this was a very selfish commitment. And I said, I'm going to stay with it and stay with you for me, not for you, because I needed to show myself that I can just stick through hard things in a relationship. And so it was definitely selfish. I mean, sad to say, not to say it had nothing to do with you, but it was mostly about me and me being able to push through something that was hard.
Was it something that your mom had said to you that?
I don't remember. I think, I just knew I was like, oh, I'm just going to look for something different. This is too much. It may have been at the moment. I don't remember.
I don't know.
But like having not been married, I'm like, I don't know if I want to deal with any of this stuff, But again, I was like, okay, I'm not going to give up on you for me.
Yeah.
And so that kind of allowed us to progress through our relationship, but we'll fast forward, but there were a lot of things that continue to come out, and we've continued to go through therapy. We've been married 15 years now, and there's still things that we have to work on. Some of that's because of the past and because of past relationships and things, right?
Yeah, fortunately, it hasn't really been about the past the last several years.
Yeah.
The first several, for sure, I needed more and more help, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I
But I guess my public service announcement is obviously it's worth getting. Just because someone's been married doesn't mean they're, used and never like that is not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that I admonish you to go get real professional counseling, because whether or not in your courtship and dating something's come out, something will come out. And if you don't have the tools or skills to talk about it now, it will happen later. And I don't want that to be a bombshell, right? So if someone has had a past relationship that was, whether it was marriage or a long dating relationship where there's any type of trauma, I highly encourage those people to go through counseling, because it will come out. It absolutely will come out when you're at the safest, your vulnerability's down, it will come out and it can affect the relationship.
Yep. And it did affect the relationship, but I couldn't be more grateful that you never gave up. You didn't give up on me.
Yeah, I didn't.
You stuck it out.
Yeah, and it was hard, and obviously hard things are worth it, but I think it would have been easier had I known other questions to ask, or it was like, hey, you're going through therapy. Like, I don't know if I started going through therapy for 10 years into our marriage. You had gone through lots of different therapists, but I had my own stuff I had to work through and work on. And then we had our own things we need to work on together.
Yeah.
So it took a long time. And again, this is another plug for therapy. Like, not a single person on the planet shouldn't go through therapy.
Right.
Like, everyone needs therapy for something in their life that they don't know how to process on their own.
Yeah, we went through therapy. We've gone through therapy very recently because we just were stuck in a communication cycle, and we learned all about it. He does this, I do this, I say this, he does that, and we go back and forth, and we learned about our cycle. And then we were introduced to what we call the mat, and it broke down the communication cycle that we were stuck in and allowed for the person to speak and one person to listen. And it has completely transformed how we communicate now.
Yeah.
We still get back into it.
Yeah. All
Not perfect.
relationships will have that,
It's going to happen,
Yeah.
but it's changed it.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, I think, I guess the question, we talked about this before we started filming. How would you say that your past experience with your previous marriage, how can you say that that has shaped you into a diamond?
First, I want to say that particular experience, I was given multiple opportunities to open up and share with other women who had been in some kind of similar or abusive relationship. And the fact that I was able to open up and be vulnerable and to share, I know I was able to help many other women at that time who needed to hear what I had to say, and gave them the courage to, who knows if they ended up leaving or if I was just a listening ear or someone that they could relate to. But it was a very specific time in my life where I was able to help other women in those similar scenarios. Um, it has allowed me to become a very vulnerable and open person. Um, to say that's been the hardest thing I've gone through would be a complete lie. Um, there's been much, I think, harder things that I've had to go through. And I'm always grateful for those people who are willing to open up and share their hard. And that's why we're doing this, is because you're not alone. Um, we want you to know you're not alone and that there's help and that there's ways to come out and to come out bigger and stronger and brighter. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself in the process in therapy. And if I wouldn't have gone to therapy, I think it would have taken, I don't know, would I still be a broken person? I don't know. And I say that in a way because I needed to learn so many things about myself. And that experience gave me that opportunity and that chance to really learn and understand me and to learn how to speak up for myself and to start leaning into, "Oh, who am I?" And it's the hard that can help us become something better, stronger, but doesn't mean it's fun to get through.
Well, thank you for sharing. I also see that one of the comments you made is that you married him because you thought you weren't worth or deserving of anything greater. And I know that's one thing that has changed with you, is that I think you know now better what your worth is.
Yeah.
And I'm a very imperfect person and an imperfect husband. But I hope I have shown you by how I treat you and act that you are worth more and you're worth loving and you're deserving of everything that's good.
Well, to go from something where I felt so completely unsafe and lived a life in fear to a place where I tell you all the time that you are my safe place means a lot. And it means the world to go from that to this. I know not everybody gets that chance, but I'm eternally grateful that I had the second chance.
Thank you. And I'm grateful that I didn't give up,
Me
because
too.
it has been hard. It has been very, very hard.
Yep.
We have lots of other experiences that have really tested us, but
A lot.
you are worth it. And I want everyone that's watching and listening to know that you're worth more than your past relationships have given you. You are worth more, and don't ever let someone who treats you in a demeaning or a horrible way ever to define what your worth is, because you're worth more. You're worthy of love. You're worthy of happiness and of good things happening in your life.
Yeah, and to those who are in maybe an abusive relationship, get out. You're worth more. There's a way to find help and to find the potential that you truly have and to find who you truly are.
So thank you for, again, sitting with us on this little bit vulnerable and perhaps uncomfortable topics of heavy topic, yeah, of ex-marriages, past marriages, divorce, and all those yucky kind of feelings that come from it. I can say, and I'm happy to say, that I can tell that that chapter is closed, and it definitely doesn't evoke the same emotion that it used to. So you've definitely put in the work for your healing, which is awesome. And for those that are just going through or starting the process or thinking about the process, find that support group. And it's like I said,
They're out there.
yeah.
They are.
And just know, again, like the theme, you can't see it now, you might not feel it, but what you're going through can make you into a diamond if you'll let it. But it takes time, it takes polishing, and you'll have to maybe look backwards until you can see it. So thank you again for joining us on this special episode.
Thank you.